here?
How do we are in Chicago, New York, and California, and the USA has many economic problems and struggles for resources. How do we deal with it in the future? Immigration laws are unpacking us, and the sanctuary city. I want your feedback on how the USA should deal with these issues. Chicago became a sanctuary city in 1985. As a sanctuary city, Chicago prohibits city agencies from asking about the immigration status of people seeking city services. The ordinance also prohibits Chicago police from questioning the immigration status of crime victims, witnesses, or other law-abiding citizens. A sanctuary city is a municipal jurisdiction that limits its cooperation with the national government's effort to enforce immigration law. My question is, how should the USA deal with these pressing issues? Please give us your feedback. Thank you.
Hey, the show started. How you doing?
Well, here.
Oh, we started, bro. Okay, you're looking at the Underground Railroad television show. Podcast. And let me turn that off. And the thing is, we're going to talk about immigration. And you know what, Miss Dahlia, Prophet Johnny on to talk about immigration, but we're going to start all the way from the beginning. I hope that doesn't tire you out. And my guests, I'm going to bring them in one at a time. Ladies first, please. How you doing, sister?
Hello, thank you for having me here on the podcast, and I appreciate it. I'm Dalia Tapia from Latina Spirit, as you can see, Espíritu de Latina, CAN TV show, and we will be discussing a little bit of the history of the immigration as far as our history when U.S. also got the land. You might have questioned yourself, well, why these states on the West Coast, they sound Spanish, like, California, Oregon. So we will look we will talk a little bit about that and much more. So thank you for having me on the show.
Okay. And Prophet Johnny, how you doing, brother? To give us an introduction, and thank you for accepting the invitation, brother.
I'm getting a little static. Sound like I'm breaking up, but in any case,
we can hear you.
Greetings to everyone. So I'm just here to share a little international perspective on the subjects. So I'm glad.
Yes, the show that comes on Sundays at what time?
At 10 a.m. every Sunday morning at 10 a.m.
Okay, and you know what? Let's get ready to get on down with it, man. Because you know what? I found out something about the people out there in YouTube. They leave fast when you don't get to the point. My thing is, give a synopsis. What happened is, you know what? This is a big issue. I'm talking about in the United States of America right now. Immigration. But you know what? We need to find out the origins, where it stemmed from, and the repercussions are the benefits that come with it. And you know what? I'm gonna start out with Miss Dahlia first. I want to ask you, Miss Dahlia, once upon a time, I believe, from what my research is, that the United States took land that was rightfully Mexico's, Central America. And you know what? You're the expert on that. Correct me.
Well, I'm not necessarily an expert, but I'm actually I'm very knowledgeable on the topic because of my own ancestral history and my great-grandparents. So I'll start with the fact that our country, United States of America, basically is formed from immigration. When the Europeans, pioneers, crossed an ocean, which many of my Caucasian friends might not acknowledge, but yeah, that's how it happened. They crossed an ocean protesting. That's why they were called Protestants, protesting. If you ever go to London, you get to see they had to worship the kings there. So they were protesting that. So they came and crossed an ocean here. So we had the 13 colonies. However, as I mentioned in the beginning, you might have asked yourself, the question is like, why is in the West the names of Oregon, Texas, Arizona, they sound Spanish? Well, because that was Mexico, all of that land until the gold rush. So when the gold rush happened, it's like all of a sudden, wait. And that is how people started moving there, rushing to the west, to California, because there was really gold on the inside the river. Really, they would go, and you might have seen pictures also where they were taking the gold. So though all that land, there were people already in that land. I want to make sure that people understand this. There were people in California, Texas, Arizona, Nevada. That's why the names are in Spanish.
Yes.
So by the time that we had Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which was the land that was sold by literally pennies.
Wow.
That was pennies. And it was a treaty that happened under certain very harsh circumstances. But I mean, harsh is like, my understanding is that it was forced. Not necessarily that Mexico wanted to sell this land. It was not like, oh, we want to get rid of this land. No, not necessarily. So that those states, that's why they have,
Arizona and Texas. Yeah, okay.
So no, I want to make sure that we have that history as far as that region of the United States, that the border didn't cross that they didn't cross the border crossed them, the people that were there. And when I say, as far as my personal history is my grandmother, and I was just looking at some of the videos when I took of my grandmother, her and her father, they would come and go between Texas and Mexico. It was not like a big of a deal, because again, that was land that would be like, not that again, Mexicans would come and go normal. No, it was like, okay, that
talk. I got a little audio problem. Y'all go ahead and talk. I got a little audio problem. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, there's an audio.
You Johnny, go ahead and talk. I got a little audio.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So you're having Clifton is having an audio problem. Okay. Anyhow, so now let's fast track to the current situation. The current situation that we have right now. All right. So it's unprecedented what is happening, and I want to share basically what I do know, as I've talked to people who are here undocumented, recently arrived. The information that is not getting out there, it needs to be investigated, that there's people going to these countries and telling people, hey, come to the US illegally. Literally. There are people going to these countries telling these people to come here illegally. That's why we have the situation now that is out of control. And why nobody's investigating that? I want to know, there's got to be something behind all of this, because they, even when they're at on the stations, they don't have money. So, for example, somebody will come up with the money so they can get on the buses to come here. So that needs to be investigated.
Yeah, Clifton suggests, and there are others suggest that it's political in the sense that particularly the Democratic Party is positioning the influx of immigrants and courting them as a Democratic base in upcoming national elections. That can be the case, and I think, in my opinion, that has been the case before in other immigration influxes that we've had. But we've debated, and my opinion, that in addition to that, the purpose of encouraging immigration, even illegal immigration, is in preparation for a war.
Oof.
So, in order to increase the pool of draftees or enlistees.
Wow. That's a point that I hadn't thought about, but it's very interesting. Going back to the fact that you are saying, hey, positioning them under the Democrats, right? Because that's pretty much what is happening right now, currently. If they're okay, so you mentioned as far as the influx. This is unprecedented. Like the numbers unprecedented. So that is what's scary. And then also too the fact that what happens with the people that for example, there were many I don't know exact number right now, maybe we can research it, of undocumented people here prior to that. They have been wanting a reform, and it hasn't happened where they can become integrated into the society. They're still there. So how do you think that's going to happen? How do you think that's going to play out? Really, the people that have been here for 25 years, 30 years, undocumented, working. I don't know what's the process as far as their income tax or not, but that they've been here, and then all of a sudden there's this new influx of undocumented people, and then they get like fast track to possibly citizenship. It's like, wait a minute. How do you think that plays out?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So if you have a job, legally employed, then of course you're going to be paying income tax, and that is a major concern with people who have entered the country legally and the ones who have entered illegally years before but have now entered into a process of legal immigration rather than illegal migration, because it's just migration until you're actually either get a legal working status or become an actual citizen.
Yes.
So
it takes years for that process.
It can be up to 10 years or more, really.
Exactly. So the system itself is broken. The process for and that's one of the things that I really stress out. The system takes years, like 10 years for somebody to legally become as a resident. Literally, it takes you years to literally go through the legal
and it takes
process.
Work. Not just time, but work. You have to constantly be staying on top of your documentation, meeting with officials, sending and receiving, responding to mail. You probably have a lawyer that you are paying in many cases. So and then some people who have a lawyer and are doing all these things the right way, it's taking years for them to have their citizenship or immigration status upgraded, if you want to call it that. But then you have people that's coming in and illegally, like now, and a lot of things are being put in place to try to fast track them.
Exactly.
Including this new bill that was just rejected by Republican senators.
Well, I mean, when we look at the bigger picture, actually, also the people who are working and that are undocumented here, they also pay taxes, but my understanding is they cannot file for those taxes. So that's also money that I wonder where is it going, because they have to pay taxes. Any person who's working, the government does take taxes, but they cannot legally. And how I know that, because at one point I experienced identity theft, and I had to go through a whole process. And I believe there were 3 people using my Social Security at the time, and I was like, wait a minute, I have
3 jobs, 4 jobs.
Yeah. So I was like, what's going on right here? And in different states. So that's what happened to me. But they couldn't file the income tax forms. However, they had to pay taxes. So that's how I needed to go back and clean my whole record. Is like, wait a minute, how did it happen? So going back to this, it's very interesting, the position. And supposedly, I mean, the guy that is supposed to be overlooking this Mallorca, right? I mean, he's supposed to be doing this, and then I question, that needs to be all investigated. All his everything has to be really investigated, because as I said, this is unprecedented. And
So
in this year coming up with our elections, is like, wait a minute, are they trying to do something here? And that would be very unacceptable. I mean, really.
this is what I think is going on. For all of the reasons that we've stated, this country wants illegal immigrants, Democrats and Republicans, but they're making it a political football for their own political advantage. Now, because a lot of people know that this is what the politicians want, they are making money off of it. They're going recruiting people to come here, because what I'm hearing is these people are paying upwards of $8,000 to get here. And so they're making it making money. So the Democrats and Republicans are making it a political gain. You have some citizens that is making it a financial gain. But now the trick becomes, okay, this is an election year. Now this creates a particular issue, because now this is some real political shenanigans, because Biden, people want to give one party or the other credit for something. But now I can't give either party credit, because the Democratic Party, they could have been done something about immigration. Right? The only impetus to do something now is because it's an election year. So they want to get something done. Now, because something needs to be done.
Hey, wait, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Right. Because something needs to be done, we shouldn't be fighting it, right? So they should be doing their job and actually getting something comprehensive done. But now that the Democrats, because it's a election year, wants to do something, the Republicans want to fight them on it and say, no, we're not going to do nothing in an election year, because that'll make you look good. So now we as citizens and the immigrants, undocumented, illegal, all have to now suffer, because the Republicans just don't want something to actually be done, because it can make the incumbent look good.
Yeah, well, going back to what I mentioned earlier on, the fact, Clifton, what I was mentioning is that this whole thing has to be investigated, because it's unprecedented. The number of undocumented people, and my interaction with them, as I've questioned, or as they've shared, that people come to their towns in Latin America and encouraging them to come here illegally. And then when they don't have money to actually board on those buses, somebody's paying for them. So all of that needs to be investigated. Plus, I mentioned the other people that have been here for years, and the legal process takes years. We were talking 10 years for it to become just a resident. So it's sort of like a broken immigration system. It seems like on purpose, right? Like all these years has been broken on purpose. And then when the Democrats had both, all the House, the president, everything, nothing happened as far as a reform, immigration reform. But now in election year, all of a sudden, it's like these, again, numbers, the influx that we were mentioning, they're so high, and yet it's like, wait a minute, what is really going on? And are they putting them as a platform for the Democrats to get just immediate votes? Well, that would be unfair and unethical in many levels, and it needs to be, but nobody's investigating. That's the other thing, nobody's investigating. Why is nobody investigating? because this has to be addressed and dealt with. I am I am pro immigration, but the right way, in a system that functions. And also the people that have been here already working for so many years, and it's like, wait, we've had this issue, and we marched, we did this, we did that, and nothing ever happened. It's sort of like, it seems like the people, those people have been just used because of numbers, because of the numbers, they do take them into account, into the for the seats, the representative seats, they do take them into account, even though they're undocumented. But there's no voice for them, or for any, those numbers. So it's like, it's sort of like taking the seats, and no in other words, no process done, thorough full process. So yes, Clifton.
I want to, what I'm coming into what I had technical issues. Okay. But my question to both of you, I would like to know, what did the United States of America do to cause that was catastrophic in Mexico and Central America and Guatemala to destabilize it? I like for both of you to address that.
Well, the United States has gone to these countries and destabilized the government. So instead of, this is foreign policy, they go and destabilizes those countries. What that creates is what? Immigration over here. So that's what needs to be dealt with when our country goes and moves like a government from another country. What does that create? That creates people believing.
I'm saying, what are some of the things that they have done to destabilize these? I'm talking about these areas to make it impoverished. What have they done? What are some of the? What is this?
This is how this game is played, and it's not new. It's centuries old. It's called imperialism, and it's usually exercised through a combination of monarchs, or kings, queens, and merchants. Whereas the monarchy benefits from the exploits of the merchants. So they go out and find new lands, colonies, and extract the wealth. So it's the same game, but the techniques change. So what has happened in recent history is that these companies, however, whatever business they're in, when it comes to South America, it usually has to do with produce, whether it's tobacco, bananas, other kinds of fruits. That's why they call, basically, this is centered around what's called the banana wars. So you've got all of these businessmen who are looking to exploit the resources in South America, because they, are connected with the U.S., and they have this wealth, and then they have this military complex behind them. They can afford to go and invest in these countries, and then if they're not getting a favorable deal, they can always appeal to their political leaders to get entangled in this. And next thing you know, you got some warships showing up on your coast.
And from your perspective, Ms. Dahlia, what has the United States done to destabilize Central America and Mexico and these in that hemisphere to cause? There's a cause and effect, and what I want the listeners to understand, some of the things that the CIA has done in our government.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so do you think that in Mexico there's companies making guns and weapons?
No, they make the guns here.
Exactly. So Clifton, when you are asking me, what is our country doing? What is our government doing? Those guns, those weapons come from here. So that's a way to destabilize. And look, I am not saying this is wrong, this is right. No, this is what is happening. Guns are not made, produced in Mexico. Weapons are not done and produced in Mexico. So we have a lot of them, but where are they coming from? Here. And how do they get there? Do you think legally? So that's the question. So who's on top? Who's on top of this? Our political people. And then we have our politicians, we have our all these leaders, and it's like, why is nobody talking about the real issues? The real issues is that they come to these countries, destabilize, as you mentioned, Johnson, that they go with these companies and they are obviously extracting the resources, the natural resources. So if you want a strong United States, you must have a strong, respectful relationship, diplomatic relationship with these countries, where you don't come and just steal the natural resources for your corporations that create an influx of undocumented people to our country. So you create, actually, no, what you create is you create a respect so that that country progress. So there's a win-win for everybody. However, currently, as Americans, look at this. We're Americans and we don't even have healthcare for everyone. We don't even have education for everyone. And we are one of the wealthiest countries. I mean, again, going back to the point that our country, our government, our leaders are not doing what's in best interest of the humans, of the citizens of the United States, of all the other countries, but of only a few that benefit financially. And that's why we have right now like this discrepancy, humongous discrepancy in wealth. And so the destabilization comes from importing not only in Mexico, actually in all Latin America, and not only guns, but we're talking about where they support these corporations and these leaders that don't really care for the people of their own countries as well. So it's sort of like a domino effect.
I'd like to ask both of you to address this issue. I've done a reading, and has the CIA conducted operations within these governments to destabilize it? And if they have, can you give us the example? One example, both of you.
I think the one of the most documented examples would be Venezuela.
Okay.
And in fact, I mean, this is pertinent to what's going on now, because if you understand what's going on in Venezuela, they're having this high inflation that's attributed to the policies of Hugo Chavez. How that he kind of like betted on the future, and they're like trying to suggest that him betting on the future was kind of bad asset management. But I think world politics disagree, because by them having a very important export of oil reserves that's competitive to any oil reserves anywhere in the world, they have a strong resource in order to be able to bet on their future. But when the U.S. Encouraged a world embargo against that oil, then it looks like it was a bad economic structure that he built. I don't think so. So basically, this is again the results of a U.S. policy that has a collapse of an economy, which causes residents of that country to migrate here and create a migration issue.
And not only here, their Venezuelans are going all over the world. Because I came across some Venezuelans as I was working in the Middle East as well. But I'm going to go a little bit further than that. I'm going to go to Cuba. Why? Because I visited Cuba. Yes. And this is what I learned. You know what? I love asking questions all the time. And I love to get the different feedbacks from different angles. I don't think that, okay, the intentions of some people, they are of greed, of just, as if they're going to take what they're earning in this lifetime with them to the grave, which of course we all know they won't. However, there's other people whose intentions are from, hey, we can live through this life in a very peaceful way. And there's all these different kinds of angles, right? So I went to Cuba myself because I don't, yeah, you know what? I don't believe things. I go and I ask and I find out myself. So I would ask, I literally, I was asking, can you tell me the truth of what is it like here in, I'll tell you what happened. They explained to me the embargo and how it impacts them. So this is what happens. So here I am in a very nice hotel resort. I'm eating meat, beef, chicken, and I literally, I'm enjoying myself. But then I do notice, I'm like, wait a minute. I want to know more. They do not have to pay for rent. They do not have to pay for electricity. They don't have to pay for education. They don't have to pay for many other things. So
I
I'm
got a
like, how does
question.
she pay?
A quick, because I was asking you, can you give us an example of what the CIA operatives have done to cause
Well, I think she's on that trail right now
through a proxy or whatever? If you could, okay.
Yes, that's exactly what I actually discovered. That was part of the CIA, the same CIA that actually has pretty much secretly control over all of our communication. Okay, so when this whole happened with Cuba, the group that was in control was white people.
Mm-hmm.
And the brown people who took over, they didn't want them. That's why they put the embargo. And it has to do with racism. It has to do with racism. And as I was talking to the people there, I'm like, explain this whole situation to me. Literally, they were telling me, we cannot eat the same meat that you have because guess what? There's this thing called embargo. Well, say for example, a company in Mexico wants to do business with Cuba. The U.S. will say, Mexico, we won't do business with you because there's companies in your country who want to do business with Cuba. How is that fair? That's not fair. That is not fair for the humans of those regions, of those countries, because those people, majority of them are brown like me, or dark, we're people of color in all of those regions, in Latin America. But yet who's on top? Who is on top controlling? And even to our own country, look at Congress. They're all white men. And who's this CIA? Well, guess what? Secret groups, they listen to all of us and they plan ahead of us before, because they're listening to everyone, what's going to happen. So what they were expecting to happen right there in Cuba is for the revolution not to have collapse, and that's it. But the people there found ways to survive and to make it. And that's one thing, resistance. And just because I'm brown, does that make me less of a person than you? No.
And
These leaders worldwide? No, I don't think so. And that was when you talked to Clifton about what has this CIA and secret groups of FBI has done. They've gone to all these countries, and you see the leaders in those countries. Many of them are white, not brown, like the people that they represent, that they're supposed to represent. And that's why they didn't want this other guy. I'm not from, like I'm not this or that, but what are you doing for the people? Does it mean what? That you're just gonna exclude them? And I'll tell you one thing, when I was in Peru, there were signs saying we do not accept in stores, we do not accept indigenous people. How is that possible? How is that possible?
Where is this at?
Peru. I was in Peru. I was in Ecuador. You see a lot of racism in these countries. Oh, you do. And it's even within
Argentina, I'm sure.
families. Yeah. So we're talking, layers and layers of generational like conditioning. And when for example, I speak out, oh, I'm a target, and they're listening to me. Those people, those secret groups are listening to me. Welcome. You're welcome. Guess why? The greatest equalizer is death. When I'm gone 6 feet under, my skin color is not going to matter. My wealth is not going to matter. My religion is not going to matter. What's going to matter is what I did right for all the other humans, in balance with respect. That is what's going to matter. And so, Clifton, going back to your question of what has this done, it has happened is that and you look around, who is in control? Who's in control of our country? Who's in control of our country?
What I find so interesting though is, and I found it was very heartbreaking. Well, I maybe exaggerate when I say heartbreaking, but disappointing for me how that one of the most sensible things that the U.S. has done in recent years was when Obama reestablished relations with Cuba. And here you come with Donald Trump and decides that no, he wants to undo for no reason at all. It you know, and this is, I mean, I'm like really not politically biased, but these are the type of things that make me not want to vote for Trump, because it's, if my vote leans towards stability, and
Yes.
that's really destabilizing when you purposely create uh, bad diplomacy between countries.
Yeah, you know what? To both of you, since both of you are acknowledging that the United States have destabilized Central America, Venezuela, Peru, all these countries in
Panama, Colombia,
Oh
Panama,
yes. Mhm.
you are acknowledging this. Is it wrong? Do you perceive it wrong?
Nicaragua.
The individuals that are fleeing that tyranny and totalitarian governments to come
Now,
to the United States, do you perceive them
let,
as
let,
being wrong?
let me address that, because
Cause and effect.
what we're finding, uh, see, the immigration issue is really a tough issue to deal with as a citizen, as much as it probably is as those migrants,
Yes.
because understanding U.S. world history and U.S. history, you have to be empathetic to migrants that come to the U.S., because, as we've been talking about, the U.S. has intentionally destabilized certain areas of the globe, mainly in South America.
Mhm.
So, given the fact that some of these people are indigenous, they have indigenous blood, and their ancestors have paid with their life, uh, for the land that the Europeans have come and taken, and now that those same people are benefiting for the politics and the economics
Mhm.
that's the political and economic war that's been waged in these same lands, are coming here, having to come here, where the wealth has been extracted to. you know we have to be empathetic to that. But however, the wealth that the US has is more than most countries, but yet and still in this country there's a large wealth gap. So we that are at the bottom of the ladder, I can see the migrants as a threat. So, we feel like they're cutting the line. So it's a war between empathy and our personal interests.
Yeah. Dahlia look like she
So,
wants to jump in. Go ahead, brother.
yeah.
Go ahead. Mhm.
Well, U.S. has also destabilized the Middle East as well for wealth gaining gains. So it's gone to different countries. So uh, that has been happening for a while now. When you mention the fact the we're sympathetic, but at the same time it's like, wait, but what about ourselves when we don't even have some of these benefits ourselves, right? So it's
Mhm.
the strategy of putting people and pinning people against each other, when the wealth we know is within only 10 families, or 10 very few people. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing that needs to be addressed. Now, going back to Trump, look, I tell you, our country, United States of America, has never dealt with the racism. So what happened with Donald Trump, it just opened it up. It was always there. It has always been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In my perception, it's always been there because my own grandmother was a racist person. All of my family members, we understand and we know, acknowledge it. And she kind of knew also herself with her perceptions of what she would say. She was, I'm talking she grew up in or she was for a long time in the South of the US, Wichita and all of these regions, all of this area. Now, when Trump came to power, it's like it sort of opened up. Now, has our country ever dealt with it? I don't think so. One more thing. What happened, what I believe it happened, when you see the law enforcement all across our country was Caucasian. run. Caucasian control.
I
So
really want to. Can I say something? I
yes,
really don't own it because of the algorithms and YouTube. I don't even want to touch on racism. Well, you know what? We could do that on other
yes.
platforms. It's a reason. That's just. I'm gonna tell. I'm gonna share everybody. I'm gonna share this with everybody. I've said something that was perceived to be racist, and you know what? YouTube put me in. They put me on punishment. So.
You. I mean,
But we
I
need to
really
talk
don't.
about it. Otherwise, how in the world
Yeah.
is it? Well, I agree. Well, okay. What? Let me just share one thing. If we don't address things, then how are we going to overcome?
I agree. I got another platform for that.
Okay.
But but I do understand totally what you and Prophet Johnson are saying. You know what? I want to ask both of you the question. Okay, since you're saying both of you are saying that the United States of America and the CIA have intentionally done things to undermine Mexico, Central America, that hemisphere. Okay. And they're coming into the country. Do you perceive that Governor Abbott is wrong for letting people come in because he is not getting help from the central government? Okay. The federal government. Is Governor Abbott, is he wrong or is he right? Is he see he's saying if you classify yourself as a sanctuary city, you shouldn't have no problem. Is he wrong or right, and why? To both of you.
You want to go, Prophet John?
Well, I mean, I would say that I want to be angry at him. I want to be like, you know, find some reason to just, shake my finger at him. But the reality is that I, for once, I I am pretty much in agreement with the Republican governor, right? That I mean, what are his options? You're promoting and permitting this illegal immigration, millions of people coming across the border into Texas. It's a humanitarian issue. It's a crime issue. It's a problem of law and order. I mean, what else? I say his only option is to do the things that he's doing, which is transporting to the cities that have claimed to be sanctuary cities. Since you claiming that, you shouldn't have a problem. And then the other thing is he's protecting his border. I think he's standing on legal ground to protect his border as the governor. He's responsible for the border, and since the U.S. don't have a comprehensive uh, law, it's lawlessness. So he's, as a governor, is putting things in place.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Well, I would go a little bit like more like number one. This also has to do with foreign policy. What is he doing as far as foreign policy? That would be my first thing. Go to the root of the problem. Go to the root, because obviously, yeah, he's just like, okay, sending the undocumented people, illegal people, to these sanctuary cities. But wait a minute, has he done investigation? Because this again is unprecedented. So instead, my advice would be to him is like, go investigate. Who is behind all this? Who's going to these countries and telling these individuals to come here illegally? Because it is happening. It was happening. And obviously somebody knows something. And that would be my number one thing is like, before you do that, go ahead and figure it out, that investigate that. Number two would be also, and I'll tell you what happened. I was listening to a Republican guy on X, I believe it was on X or one of the other platforms. And the guy, he's in Texas, in the border. He's a Republican guy. He went and filmed in the area where one of the major networks was saying, this was all undocumented people, da 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 da. He actually recorded that, and they were the military or whatever. And then he continued to go through, listen carefully, through the border videotaping. And guess what he discovered? He discovered there were many open spots, and it was through the media that this was blowing up. So he's like, wait, I'm a Republican and I support finding out the truth. So if they're telling us that we need to bring the the support from the guards and da 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 da, but it only shows right here, but then these other parts are open, there's no border. Wait, something is happening here. And literally, I mean, he videotaped it. He went and himself with the camera, and then he was like, okay, I don't know what to tell you, but we're also being misinformed. And what is right, what is wrong, who's right, who's wrong. I think we need to have ethics. And
I want to restate the question: is he wrong?
No, is he wrong?
Is Governor Abbott, is he wrong because he does not want to put that tax burden on Texas, saying, you know what, y'all classify yourselves as sanctuary cities, take them. Since I'm not getting no help, we know the problem. Is he wrong? Yeah, is he right?
Is he wrong? Again, I don't think what I'm saying is like he should be going to the root of the problem.
I got that, but I'm talking about in his actions, seeing as though he's not going to the root, and these people are pouring across his border. Is he right for his actions or wrong for his actions?
His actions should be find out the truth and work with those instead of like going and just sending these people to the different. Is like, wait, go to the root of it so that this doesn't happen and investigate it. That's what I would say. And as far as whether he's right or wrong, I'm no one to judge. I'm not going to say, hey, you're right, you're wrong, because obviously I am not in his position, but I could say that, hey, he could do things differently. That's what I would say.
But I think that that to get to the root of the problem, because the problem is not centered in Texas as far as who's instigating this. That becomes the jurisdiction of the U.S. government.
You want to respond to
that's what his complaint is that the federal government is not doing its job.
Right. And why are they not doing it? And that's my question. So my advice to him would be do something differently, because obviously if this is unprecedented and it's not working, he needs to do something differently. What it means is like, okay, then help so that we don't go to these countries and destabilize them, so that they create undocumented people coming here, and also do an investigation of this unprecedented situation, because it has never happened like that. And if it is happening, let's see. I want to see what the role of the media is in all this, because after seeing that video of this guy, a Republican, going and finding out for his truth, the same thing that I used to consider myself Democrat, not any longer. Don't call me Democrat, don't call me Republican, don't call me nothing. Call me by issues, because don't try to combine one thing with the other. That was the other thing, Clifton, that I really despise of our government right now. They have been doing is clipping things that have nothing to do with it, like trying to send money and weapons again for wars in the Middle East, clipping it with immigration. How is that connected? Money for immigration, putting it to the border, that there's no connection right there. If you were to put it for instead, like, hey, we're gonna go ahead and work with these different governments in a diplomatic form where the people themselves in those countries do benefit, then it would be a different situation. But again, I would do it differently. I'm not going to be the judge here, because first of all, I'm not God. So I'm not going to go ahead and say what's right or what's wrong. I'm not going to say, this or that. No, I'm going to say what I go and find out. And as I mentioned again, this guy who was a total Republican went and found out for himself. Hey, wait, the media's telling me this, but when I went down the road, there's other parts that the people could come undocumented, but they're showing me this. Now, the numbers, that's what I am concerned. The unprecedented numbers, that's what I am concerned. And that's, Prophet Johnson mentioned it earlier on, that he believes it's kind of putting it as a platform for the Democrats to get votes, when it's like, wait, what about us who have been putting in for taxes for all these years? It's like, wait, there's also an issue there.
I would like for both of you to address this issue. Governor Abbott is shipping. I want people to know there are other immigrants that are coming in, Haitians, there are Chinese that are coming in. I want other people to know that it's just not. It's not his
Angolians,
Angolians, and I want other people to
from
know
everywhere.
this broadcast. But my question to both of you is: Governor Abbott is shipping ship is busing these people to Chicago, New York, and California. My question to both of you is: these mayors in these cities and governors are complaining. I would like to know from both of you, how could you complain about immigrants coming into your city or state? And if you classify yourself as a sanctuary city, if you classify yourself, if I open up my doors and say anybody can come in, what would I have to complain about? Can y'all address that? I really would appreciate that.
What I see is going on is very typical. Uh, I'm trying to think of the right term to use, but elitist. That's what I see. Elitism.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the minute someone is elected to government, they take on this elitist attitude where the citizens are just pawns in their hands. So they feel that they have the right to declare a city a sanctuary city. And a lot of times, even if it's not the negligence or intent of the politician, him or herself, then they either give in to special interest activists or they just inherit and lay down to the policies of their predecessors. Because here in Chicago, I believe the first mayor that articulated that we are a sanctuary city was Harold Washington.
Yes.
And he did that be, basically to accommodate activists who included church people, like the Catholic, mainly the Catholic Church.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of the activists who initiated this policy of sanctuary cities, some of them were well-meaning, some
Well,
of them was up to no good, and then some of them had no idea what they was doing. They were just going along with the program.
Okay.
So, you know, so granted, and my problem with this is that again, I understand the migration issue and the immigration issue, so I am empathetic to immigration, but I really can't understand the permit the permitting of illegal immigration, that you accommodate people who enter the country illegally. I, it's it it doesn't make sense to me, and it's not. I don't think it's good for any of us.
But it stems, but for both. But I'm giving a comment. It stems for the destabilization that has occurred in these countries
Right.
by
That's
CIA
where I'm
and
headed.
other forces. But y'all go ahead. I'm interviewing y'all. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I think that the intentions of the leaders when they make the city sanctuary, their intentions are good. But
Yeah.
at the other hand, and we're sympathetic, but and the other hand, the amount, it's not, it's beyond. So therefore, you need to ask yourself, wait, my intentions are good, but what is this all, how is this all is have an impact to the rest of the society, or the city, right?
Hmm.
And you need to start asking the hard questions. I think the hard questions is like, hey, deal with the root. And what's the root of the situation is that we have, as Prophet Johnson mentioned, elitist groups that are benefiting from these situations, because the Republicans and Democrats benefit by hiring undocumented people because they lower wages. They can hire them for half of the price, less than half of the price. So therefore, we need to go there. and ask those questions. And that goes for both Democrats and Republicans. And that's why I'm like, don't call me Democrat, don't call me Republican, don't call me nothing. Call me person that is dealing with the issues and addressing them. So that is what I think. And again, I sympathize. I am pro-immigration, the legal process, but as we mentioned already, 10 years is way too much for somebody to go through that process in a legal manner. So it's a broken system for a purpose.
You know, but still, my question to both of you is: if you are still classified as a sanctuary city, you shouldn't have no problems with it. Why don't you declassify yourself? I'm asking both of y'all that.
Let me. Okay, so again, I think that the issue here is, for at least for me, is the activists. See, I think they're overstepping. Again, some of them have good intentions, but because you have good intentions does not justify your actions. So I think they have decided that their intentions are good, their efforts are good. So therefore, uh, it shouldn't matter whether the people enter the country illegally. They feel like the end justifies the means, so I'm gonna circumvent the government, and go and recruit people to come here illegally when we have means uh, for activism, right? So you have special interest groups that lobby the government to get them to do what they want them to do. This is something that you want the government to do. So you have to obey the law like everybody else and go and lobby to allow them to increase the amount of immigrants that they allow in this country, especially from certain areas, rather than take the law into your own hand and go and recruit illegal immigrants.
So in that regard, look at how it's very strategically put and pinned together. These secret groups like the CIA, FBI, they listen to our conversations. So say, for example, you have a group of activists who are pro-immigration, right? So then they're pushing for that. And even if it means undocumented, but who's benefiting? You have these corporations that benefit by hiring them at less than half of the price that a person from here, from our country, right? So therefore, you see this is sort of like, hey, we're doing this with good intentions, but then who's benefiting at the top? So I feel that it needs to be really look at it in a different way. So when you say the sanctuary cities, the numbers, it's beyond what they are capable of having. So therefore, they need to start changing the strategy and seeing really, again, pushing for better ways for the people to do it legally, and not the broken process that currently we have, because it's broken. It's not working, and it needs to be done right. But again, who's benefiting? Like I said, these corporations who are hiring and paying very low wages. So.
Okay, I would like for both of you to address this issue. These immigrants that are coming in, not just from Central America, they're coming in from Haiti and Guatemala. My question is to both of you is, these are democratic cities. Do you feel that since these are democratic cities, they're being let in because eventually the politicians, Democratic Party knows that these people most of them will identify and associate with the Democratic Party, where they can utilize these votes later on? Is that a possibility?
Totally. That's what we mentioned at the beginning of the show. Prophet Johnson mentioned it, is like, from his point of view, he's seen it as if this is going to be their platform for them to get numbers and votes. And I think that would be unfair, unethical, and not the right thing for America, because it's unfair. It's unfair. There should be some legal immigration process legally. And again, going back to the question that you mentioned, it's when I think about it, like, okay, what gets a person to leave their country?
Mhm.
And let me just share also with you one of the things that I did see in Mexico, one of my visits there. I
Mhm.
saw a campaign, literally a campaign telling people, do not go over there and waste your money, stay here and invest in your own country. I saw various, and it was a government, I don't know what year it was, but then you started seeing people not wanting to come to the US undocumented, rather staying and making their own businesses in their own country, in Mexico. So what that created, NAFTA. Let me talk a little bit about NAFTA. When we talk about the stabilizing countries, what happened there is that not the people who benefited was the corporations, and we're talking about a few that benefit. So again, the disparity of profit of wealth, it's so beyond, and again, not helping the Mexican people, but rather a few here in the U.S. with this NAFTA. And you would have literally you know what that treaty was, right? It was a Canada, Mexico,
North American
Canada,
Free Trade Agreement.
yes, the treaty agreement. But again, the Mexican country was not benefiting at all, and the people in in Mexico. But the ones that were benefiting out of that were the corporations, and a few of the, I mean, these corporations that went over there. So there you go. You go and create these situations. And going back to that campaign that I saw, I thought it was amazing, because the campaign was commercials, or public service announcements to the people that would air them constantly, letting people know, hey, look, you have what it takes to stay here and create your own business, and we support you. You can do it. Da, 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 da. So I got a chance to see a shift. And now when you go actually to Mexico, you can see the big difference between like the systems that they've created, because they understand if they have a solid system, then they can go ahead and sustain themselves, right, with their own natural resources. And again, ethics, it's also a matter of ethics. Who is in government? Because you have, obviously, if you have an ethical government, you will have the right processes, the right systems where the people benefit. But even in our own country right now, we don't have universal health care. We don't have universal health care. We don't, when even poor countries have that. We don't have the coverage of our education when even poor countries have that. So you money for us to go to go ahead and send for weapons for wars. That is what is happening, and we need to speak out. That's what I think. What do you think, Prophet Johnson?
Well, Prophet Johnson, do you feel that the Democratic Party is going to weaponize, utilize, or exploit the people that are coming from these impoverished countries, because to build up the numbers, to let them into the sanctuary city, because it's a probability they will vote Democrat?
I mean, as we were saying earlier, that's may play a part, but my first inclinations was given other political events, that this is more about creating a pool of draftees and enlistees in anticipation of a war.
I didn't think about
Seeing that other because from I seeing that with our other policies, that political policies that we have, they are not conducive to creating the population that we need in order to create that pool, which for also is the reason I think Roe versus Wade was overturned, because they're foreseeing that we need a population boom, so they want to somehow reverse the decline in fertility.
Wow.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, no, but I'm wondering, Prophet Johnson, for war with who? These, the war that,
China.
for which, who?
China.
Oh, wow.
That was
There we go. Then we have the same situation, going into these wars that are like costing us. so much of our tax money. They're taking so much of our tax money and not benefiting us. So I think it's time for Americans to, I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, but to ask yourselves the question, like, who am I putting out to represent me? And am I calling upon my representative to do the right thing for me and for my needs? So I think, and you know what? I didn't think about that, Prophet Johnson, as far as the fertility. But what is our, and so that's why you think they're allowing the numbers, the influx of undocumented. You think?
Yes.
Wow.
But you know what? That's I didn't think about it. There's a correlation because there are less people that are joining the U.S. military. Plus, they're letting them in without even high school diplomas, saying they can get their high school diploma in the military. And I never thought about it. Never thought about it.
Wouldn't it be nicer if our country would try peacefully to do things? I mean, wouldn't it be better? But again, how, in a world ruled by men, how can we get there?
Well,
Can we?
I mean, I have to say, that I don't think peace is gender specific because, whether domestically or internationally, even when you look at the monarchs of Europe, Bloody Mary and all, they were all about war. So I don't think it matters the gender. I think that humans are just warlike.
But wait, my question to you is like, who is most of the wars? Who are behind it? Males or females? I'm just wondering.
I think most of the wars, who's behind most of the wars, people in power.
Right, military. But women or men?
Well, it's women when women are in power, and it's men when men are in power.
Okay, so right now, right now, I don't think there's equal amounts of women in power than men in power in our country.
But the ones that's in power are they good with war.
But look at our country. We have never even had a woman, and we're supposed to be one of the countries that is like equality and quality. We haven't even had a female.
Well, England has had plenty of female monarchs.
Where?
And a prime minister. Spain has, and in every case there was war.
Wait, I want to know. Wait, which one you're talking about? Where did a woman led into a war? Which one? Be specific, because I would love to research it and find it.
Margaret Thatcher led a war. Bloody Mary led many led wars as well as persecutions of many. Isabella was much less peaceful than was Ferdinand. Yeah, Ferdinand was more about peace than was Isabella.
We're not gonna agree. I can see.
No, we can't. We can agree because that's historical. That's historical fact.
I'm talking about both of y'all. Y'all
disagree because the amount of wars led by men, I think, outnumber the amounts of wars led by women. You think? Would you agree with me or not?
I would agree. The people who have led nations, there have been more men than women. But when women are in power, there's still war.
Okay, but more men are leading in the nations, right?
Yeah, so, but when women have the opportunity, they start wars.
I don't know. I think I'm not going to go there because of data. I want to research data.
Now I want to get on back. That's interesting. We got to do a show on that. Okay, but my next question is there was a huge meeting in Chicago and other cities, and there are people within the African American community mad, upset, angry because they feel that this capital, the individuals that are coming into these sanctuary cities, it's not right because it's going to raise up the property taxes. That's going to raise up the rents. And some feel that their property value is going to go down. I don't know if that's valid. Do you think that the people that are protesting and angry in these communities and sanctuary cities are wrong for saying this money could have been allocated towards something else that somebody coming into the country illegally getting. What can y'all address that?
Prophet Johnson first.
Oh, okay. I mean, I understand. Again, uh, property taxes is something that we should all be sensitive to, or any of these taxes and expenses that we incur. But it goes back not to the immigration, the fact that we have immigration, it goes to the fact of the uh, mass immigration and illegal immigration that we have that's uncontrolled.
So they legitimate for being angry. Okay.
Yes, because if it wasn't for immigration being out of control, we would. I don't think the property taxes would be. There would be pressure on property taxes as it is.
Okay.
You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to say, okay, every human has a right to feel the way that everybody is entitled to have their own feelings. I don't think just because of someone else's experience. No, acknowledging is very important. Acknowledging the people's feelings is extremely important, as well as I acknowledge the people who are undocumented and legally, illegal immigrants. That is important to acknowledge feelings and processes of an individual. Okay. Now, when you say, are they right or wrong? Again, I am not going to judge because I'm not God. I'm not going to say this is right, this person is right, this person is wrong. They are feeling those things because of everything. And also many times because of the lack of information that they might not have. So, for example, when I tell you that there are these individuals going to these countries and encouraging people to come here illegally, the people who are feeling angry, they don't know that this is happening. And the mainstream media is not going to show it and it's not going to share that. So that is where I feel, okay, they're entitled to their feelings. And of course, they have the right to feel upset because obviously they are also paying into the taxes and they're being impacted. So they have the right to have those feelings for sure. Now, how can this be all solved? The solution is very simple. I mean, like, look, just don't have your elitists, the ones that are like the 1% that has all the wealth, go and destabilize through our using our systems to destabilize other countries. That's simple. And I'll tell you, those countries they're not going to have people wanting to come here. And like I mentioned earlier on to you, like with the Mexican government, I don't know what year it was that I was traveling and I saw their campaign and I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is really good. And I did. When you go there, you see the different process, the different systems that like roads, like here, everything like here. And it's like, okay, that's great. And so going back, when there's a win-win for all, I think that's when we have peace. But when you have the 1% of our country really going and taking advantage of us, even Americans, and of other countries, then what do you expect? You're gonna get people who are angry and upset. And like I said, I am very sympathetic for immigration. Oh, totally. But we need to do something to fix the broken immigration system. 10 years for waiting for a process to become a citizen, or I'm sorry, or just a resident. 10 years, 12 years, that's way too much. While you've been spending money, time, resources, and everything, that's just unfair. That's just totally unfair. And as I said, both parties have been playing this game with the immigration instead of really dealing with it. Playing the immigration thing, a topic, issue, and putting people against each other. And so I believe that it's a strategy to put people against each other. I hope it's not for the reason that Prophet Johnson is mentioning as far as war with China. I hope it's not. I really hope that is not the case. So because then again, you know what? I think then our country is going to be like totally downhill. Why? Because how many years our country has been in existence? 248, I believe, 47 years. One of those two. Okay, in existence. And out of all those years, only 15 years without a war. Can you imagine that?
I
Without wars, peace, and then
know
you can find it
he has always been at war with somebody.
right.
I'm talking about the military and industrial complex has always been making money somewhere. I think you're talking about a major war. Is that what you're talking about?
I
No,
hope
I
it
mean,
doesn't.
I don't think it's necessarily been a major war. It's just been some kind of war of some type.
Oh
And
yeah,
even
Yeah.
those 15 years, I'm sure we was fighting somewhere. It just wasn't official.
yeah, probably infiltrating somewhere. But that is that you can go ahead and research it. 248, I think by now, 248 years, and then out of that, only 15 years without a war, without being in a war. You ask yourself, who benefits out of all of this? Who? And
Military
Corporations.
industrial complex and
right,
rich
yeah,
men.
yeah. Then we have here Americans, like, and I think they've put us against each other a lot, different groups, because obviously they're hearing our conversations, so they know, hey, we know that this person is against this topic, so therefore let's put it against this, or this group is against this, and this put them against each other. So I think that they've utilized that, and going back to the feelings of whether they're right or wrong, the people that are angry as far as the undocumented people or illegal immigration, and me telling you, no, I don't know, I can't judge. I'm not going to tell you right or wrong. I can tell you people have the right to their feelings, but also I know for a fact that some other entities probably listening to the people talking to know how to put people against each other, to put groups against each other, instead of like
And they're
really.
very good at that. I mean, and we're living in a time that's truer than ever. I mean, it's everybody against everybody. I might also say that male against female is one that we have not explored, which is becoming more of a thing every day.
Sure. Oh,
You
we can
have
talk about that as maybe in another
yeah,
another topic, but
we got
you're right.
families against family. You know, yeah, you're right, and it's getting worse every day.
Yes, and just to, when you mentioned the family, many times even within families, we have different point of views, and they're since they're listening to our conversations, like putting people against each other within the families, and I
Hmm.
think that is so unethical. What kind of human would do something like that? I don't know. I ask myself, who
It's a
would
good
want to do
question.
that,
Mhm.
and why
You
would
know
they want
what?
to?
Well,
Go ahead.
okay. I mean, it's kind of like I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but it's many types of people. There's it is what level are they on? There's some people on a very domestic level, all the way up to people on a political level, and generally they tend to be classified as narcissists.
Donald Trump. I, I got a
There's one.
but my question for both of you, that this is year 2024 and people can look back in history and use this show as a case study to find out what we were doing in year 2024. I would like to ask both of you that there was a resolution about that occurred about the immigration crisis, okay, between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And former President Donald Trump he influenced them to renege on the agreement that they was going to sign. Why did he do that? And what was his motive to both of y'all? And why?
Say, wait, he did what? I'm sorry.
There was an agreement that was between the Democrats and the Republicans
Senate, the
to
Senate,
straighten out,
the
to,
Senate, Democratic and Republican Senate
get,
had an
to
agreement.
resolve the immigration issue. But former President Donald Trump put pressure on these Republicans to say, you know what, wait till I get in office. Why did he do that? Why? What was his motive? And did he do the right thing?
Okay, first of all, um, we touched on it earlier, but um, not only was it an agreement between the Senate Democrats and Republicans, it was a very right leaning Republican bill
Yes.
that had some laws that were caved pretty much in terms of restricting immigration. Now, it rightfully increased the number of people who can legally immigrate into this country, but it gave far more reaching powers to repatriate, that is, uh, deport people and expedite their deportation. Like they come in today, and we find out certainly they're not here for asylum, political asylum, and that they came illegally. We can deport them like tomorrow, right? So it really expedited deportation, and most of it favored the Republican um, said perspective or policies on immigration, but it was rejected by Republicans, by the same ones that lobbied for it. Once uh, this guy Donald Trump decided that he didn't want it to happen in an election year, and where he can't use it as a political football. That's why it was ultimately rejected.
You would like to respond to that, Doctor?
Well, honestly, I don't. I can tell you is that both Democrats and Republicans have benefited from just utilizing this immigration issue, but not done anything to really deal with it in the right way and through the right processes. First, by fixing the broken system, because 12 years for a person to legalize themselves is way too much. And then also to looking, of course, there was one comment that that struck with a lot of the I think Mexican people back in the day when Trump said something like, "Oh, they were all immigrants."
Rapists and murderers.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. And, like, I can't remember what exactly, but I know that a lot of the people, it angered a lot of the people, rightfully so. Rightfully so, because you cannot generalize. And that's one of the problems with Mr. Trump. I think he needs to think before he says things. And when I mentioned earlier in the beginning, and I know, Clifton, you don't want to deal with racism, but it has to, there's got to be a point where we need to verbalize things, yet acknowledging the feelings of people and overcome. Otherwise, are we really benefiting ourselves and the next generations, or are we just leaving it for the next generations to continue a cycle? So, going just to round this up is that they need to do what is right, not what is benefiting the 1%. They
Yes.
need to do what is right, not just for the 1%,
Mhm.
because we already discussed it. The 1%, I mean, they're by going to these countries, they're stabilizing them. They create undocumented immigration, so therefore, and then also investigating what is really behind all this. Somebody needs to start asking the hard questions and doing the right thing for
Yes.
everyone, for themselves and for everyone else. That's what I would say. And no matter if they're Republican or Democrats or whatever they are, independent or green or whatever party they might be, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you are ethical and that you're doing the right thing.
I would like to ask both of you to address this issue. What is the solution? What, from your perspectives? Everybody has different perspectives. What is the solution to the immigration? I'm not going to say issue, problem, or crisis, whatever word. What is the solution? Okay, I would like to ask both of you that.
Well, I kind of earlier on by saying, first of all, that it needs to be addressed from the broken system that is currently in existence. And if it's not fixed, that would be the first thing to do, fix it. Number two, it's this whole process of allowing just people without anything, that's wrong. It needs to be like, we need to be able to have a system in place to know, and then also to I mean, people who are looking for asylum, okay, that's a different thing. But then when we have this unprecedented number, that needs to be investigated. And people who are behind it, they need to be held accountable. They need to, like, somebody needs to do their job and say, wait, no, this is not right. And as far as the border, I tell you, people would not be again to the same cycle. They wouldn't be leaving their countries if in their countries their governments are really serving them. But as we already stated very clearly, many times they're destabilized. And that's one of the things. Wait, I got to mention Mr. Dick Durbin. He mentioned something that really made me start questioning, because he
Dick
has
Durbin, for people that don't know who Dick Durbin is, he's a congressman.
he's a
He no
congressman from the state
he's
of
the
Illinois.
senior senator
Oh,
of
Senator.
Illinois.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The
Okay.
Yes,
senior U.S. senator of Illinois.
Yeah.
right. Uh, what made me question more is the fact that he's talking about Latin America without him going and really talking to the people, just by whatever information he's getting. So when these staffers give him information, are they really giving him the information that is right, or are we really having the staffers that are in benefiting the 1%? Because really, when he made that comment on social media, I replied right away. I'm like, you know what? You need to go, and before you make a comment like that, generalizing, you need to go and investigate from the people directly. Like what I do. I'm not going to believe, a channel on major network. Why? Because they're about profit. I'm going to go and find out the truth. Okay, myself. And then I just wanted to mention that because he is pro immigration, but at the same time, he needs to do his job, which is investigate. And that's one of the things that that we need to pressure him to do the right thing. Whether, I mean, yeah, perfect. He's pro immigration. Yeah, we are sympathetic. Yeah, but however, these numbers are unprecedented, need to be investigated. We need to fix the broken system, and we need to do the right thing, not for the 1%, but
Mm.
for the people of, first of all, for the people of the United States, and also for the people in those different countries. And that would be my solution.
Mhm. And
Now,
Johnny, you know what, Johnny? What I mean, Prophet Johnson. So I'm sorry.
okay.
What is the solution to? I'm going to
Well,
use the word dilemma, a crisis. What is the solution?
you know, um, some the to me the most significant words in the Constitution, two, well ordered, maybe three, well ordered society, and for a to have a well ordered society that we don't have in Venezuela, that we don't have in Nicaragua, that we don't have in many of these South American countries, that we don't have in Palestine, that we don't have in many African states, uh, requires equity. When you lack equity, you're going to defeat. Did I lose everybody? Everybody stepped out on me. That was too much
Can you
for
hear me?
everybody.
Yes.
Was that too much?
No, no, go
Okay.
ahead.
I was just giving you
Okay.
the floor. Go ahead.
So in order to have a well-ordered society, it requires equity. Because if you don't have equity, you're going to have people pitted against one another. Um, because you're going to have people that don't feel like they're being treated fairly. Why? Because they're not being treated fairly. So, uh, in the uh, South American countries like Venezuela, they don't have necessities. So they don't feel like they're being treated fairly. So that leads to a not well ordered society. So they want to go to a society that is more well ordered. Now, here in the US, still we're lacking the well orderedness. Okay, we have some order, but it's not well ordered. Why? Because of the disparity of wealth. Um, so as long as we have that, we're going to have contention. So even if it's in the household, if you allow one sibling to have all the power and then the other ones you never intervene to bring balance, you will not have a well ordered household.
But I'm gonna go ahead and respond to that though. In my way, in my travels, I came across some people from Venezuela, and what I discovered though, for the most part, look at this. This is what we know here in the States is what the media is telling us. But when I went through there, the people there, the people that I came across, they were like, no, we actually can produce our own things. And when you mention necessities, they actually have. But what the media is showing us, so I don't believe the media, and I'm questioning. I questioned them. I said, okay, so you're meaning to tell me that you have everything? And they were laughing at me like, then we wouldn't be traveling if we didn't have what we needed. And then they even gave me, like, they produce their own foods and everything. And I was like, okay, so this is what I'm telling you about the 1%. When you have these big huge corporations that come and overtake the overtake, and they replace what the country's producing. That is the problem. And so right now I don't know. I gotta go visit, and let's go, maybe Prophet Johnson, so for us to find the truth. That would be a great way to really know, because what I know that the US mainstream media is telling us, I do not believe it, because they're
Okay,
about
so
profit. And when I came across, as I was traveling, as I said, they gave me a bunch of products. They gave me chocolates, they gave me cookies, they gave me a bunch of different products that were made by them right there in Venezuela. So now that was in 2000, I want to say 2015, 16. So that was while I was traveling. I don't know currently, but I would love to go find out further. And again, we have this problem with the mainstream media, that even to now, even like when I'm looking at the major networks, the networks, and I'm seeing, okay, wait a minute. Okay, here I am in Chicago teaching in the inner city, right? And then I see my students and I see the different, segregation, because it's very segregated. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Excuse me. Do you teach high school or a college grade school?
High school. Currently, I'm
okay.
yes. And
Thank
prior to that, I was actually in the elementary, and so my question to these major networks is that what they're putting out there is not reflective of the population. When I will tell you, I don't look at Friends. That show Friends. I don't look at, why? Because I always thought to myself, wait a minute, I don't see people like me. And that's what I realized. That's when I keep on pushing. And then I left productions and media for a long time, from several years, right? And now that I'm coming back, I'm like, things have not changed. So I don't see a reflection of our people, of our population in the mainstream. That is a problem. And so again, Prophet Johnson, I don't know what the condition of Venezuela is. I know what the condition of the Venezuela, according to the U.S. mainstream media, is telling me.
well,
I don't
let,
believe it.
well, again, well, I I have every reason to believe that Venezuela is materially rich.
Oh,
So when I
yes.
say don't have the things that they need, that's not necessarily to point out materialism. I'm talking again, that goes to order, right? So because of a lack of order, uh, the instability created because of the embargo, uh, they lack the order that creates uh, a a stable economy. Because of the destabilization that I believe the U.S. has caused, the corporations there following basically the same blueprint as the U.S. is altering the economy, whereas to extract wealth from the lower classes, right? They're the ones that's really locally creating this inflation, right? So they're taking certain products and making them too expensive for the lower classes
Hmm.
in order to extract wealth to the upper classes.
Wow.
That I wouldn't be able to comment on it. Like I said, I would love to to go there, like just like I did with other countries in Latin America, and yeah, to find out further. And that's another comment that I want to make as far as like the truth of what we do get and we don't get. Which I actually want to befriend people from Venezuela in my social media platforms so that they can tell me, and maybe we can have, you know what, Clifton, maybe that's one thing we can do. We can actually bring in somebody. Let's find someone from there, from Venezuela, and or some of the other countries that we're talking about, and actually have them on and directly have them share. That would be also another way. Maybe I don't
But
know, just an idea.
No, that's a great idea. And
now,
I would like, you know what? I would like to say to both of y'all, I admire the boy. He was a teacher, and you're a teacher, and I always admire teachers. I always did because you're giving your wealth of knowledge to young people in a period where there's critical race theory, where they're getting rid of knowledge, to abandon it because they don't want to hurt people. Both of y'all, I appreciate both of you. Okay.
now, thank you.
Mhm.
But one thing concerning finding people from these different parts of the world, South America, even Cuba, can't always get an unbiased opinion because the ones that's except probably okay for two reasons. Uh, Sometimes I think there's a level of fear of speaking your mind because like some people when they come over here, for example, when some people come over here,
Mhm.
uh, they are concerned about they not for citizens yet, so they're up for citizenship. So they will be concerned with articulating a unpopular ideology or idea.
Mhm.
Then sometimes you get people that may be here as a tourist, maybe they live in that country and they come here and because I've met a lot of people from Venezuela. Now,
Oh, yeah.
I've studied Hugo Chavez. I like the guy. I like what I know about him politically. I like the guy. But when I've talked to people from Venezuela, they had very negative things to say about him.
Mm.
And I think a lot of times that's based on the idea that they're seeking citizenship here and they don't want to praise anyone that's out of favor with the U.S.
Oh, true.
And many of them are ignorant of the realities, the political, economic realities of their own country. They say that, oh, he had bad economic policies, but they don't understand the U.S. embargo and the U.S. Dollar diplomacy that
Mm.
they implement against other nations,
Mm.
right? So, and it's the same thing with, I've met people from Cuba. Again, I have great respect for Fidel Castro, uh, or Fidel. I call him Fidel in more Spanish
Mhm.
articulation. But I have great respect for the man. But people that are able to come here from Cuba for, I think, ignorantly, just have negative things to say about him.
I like to ask both of y'all. Um, Both of y'all speak Espanol. Y'all can send out some type of message to that community. When y'all wave y'all hand and stop talking, then I'll come in. Okay? But I would like for y'all to reach out to the Hispanic community, perhaps give them a message of encouragement. And I'm gonna step out because I don't speak Espanol. Okay?
Oh, profeta Joseph, ¿habla español?
Sí.
Ah, yo no sabía que hablaba español. Qué bien. Entonces, ¿no has visitado Latinoamérica o sí has visitado Latinoamérica?
Solo España. Yo no he visitado a América Latina o como se dice Latinoamérica,
Sí.
pero España por un mes.
Muy bien.
Pero yo quiero visitar a Latinoamérica no solo para visitar, para trabajar, porque yo quiero aprender la cultura, la vida diario.
Muy bien. Bueno, yo he viajado por muchas partes de Latinoamérica y me doy cuenta que hasta hoy en día todavía tenemos el problema del racismo y es algo que sería bueno también discutir en otra sección, tal vez. Y también esto de la inmigración, porque es importante. La gente de Latinoamérica, creo que mencionabas que hablaban mal de, por ejemplo, de Chávez o de Fidel Castro, pero tenemos también que ver quiénes son los que dejan los países en esos momentos. So, muchas veces la gente que estaba en el poder y por eso tal vez tiene que ver. ¿Sí me explico?
Sí,
So,
sí,
la
sí.
persona que estaba en poder, como ya no está en poder, entonces sale, se viene para acá y opta por inmigración. Pero también es igual, ¿no? Todo mundo, creo que será una buena cuando cuando gane todo mundo y que no nada más un porcentaje, sino que todos, no importa nuestro color, nuestra cultura o quién somos, pero que todos ganemos y que seamos tratados equitadamente, o sea, una igualdad. Y me gusta la idea que le quiera venir a Latinoamérica, porque es muy importante tener esa experiencia de conocer a la gente y hablar uno a uno. ¿Sí?
Sí, sí.
No,
Sí,
ujú.
a veces la gente que yo encontré que la gente que no tiene respeto a Fidel ah, tiene familia que estaba en poder en Cuba. Entonces, cuando tenía una revolución, su familia um, perdieron sus ricos.
Entonces era porque eran ricos y estaban en el poder, por eso es que dejaron a Cuba. Sí entiendo, porque eso pasa muchas veces. Y creo que muchas veces es bueno que la gente quiera progresar, pero a tal manera de oprimir muchas otras personas y masas, creo que es un problema. Creo que está bien progresar, todos podemos progresar, todos podemos ganar, ganar, ganar. Pero cuando una persona quiere, por ejemplo, el problema que tenemos ahorita de un porcentaje de nuestro país, de Estados Unidos, tenemos que está teniendo
Todos los
tanto
ricos, sí,
dinero y
sí.
poder, mientras que todos los demás, nosotros nos estamos en, como la palabra struggling, estamos, no sé cómo se dice esa palabra en español, struggling. Estamos teniendo dificultades,
Ujú.
sí, y sí, y es por eso. Y creo que también nos quieren poner unos contra otros, y también eso no está bien. ¿Qué piensa sobre eso?
Um, es, yeah, yo creo que um, en, estoy tratando de recordar todo lo que dijiste.
Sí, que nos ponen los grupos aquí en Estados Unidos, un grupo contra otro. ¿Sí me
Ujú,
explico? Que nos peleemos.
ujú.
Ajá, y
Sí,
creo que ujú,
los grupos como los latinos, los negros, etcétera, ah, yeah, sí, pero en los Estados Unidos es el mismo ah, ah, estrategia que es usado todo el mundo eh, por los en poder para separar a la gente. Entonces, en la confusión, cuando estamos confundidos, está robando la gente por los impuestos, por los policías políticos.
ujú.
ah, entonces, ellos en poder quieren quedar confusión entre la gente.
Y también creo que el tema de la inmigración lo están poniendo también para crear eso como conflicto.
Ujú.
Sí.
Sí.
Bueno, creo que la gente que pueda ver esto puede concluir, hacer conclusiones y cada uno podemos tener nuestras propios pensamientos, pero con respeto. Yo creo que podemos lograr mucho.
Ujú.
Sí. Bueno, ya le decimos a Clifton que ya es todo por ahorita.
¿Otra vez?
Le decimos a Clifton que ya terminamos la conversación de usted y yo. Do we bring Clifton back?
Oh, sí. Oh,
Sí,
I guess.
Clifton, ya terminamos.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Share that with the community. Like I said, I don't understand none of what y'all was saying, but I I appreciate it, and I would like to thank both of you. And if, you know, I've been asking y'all a series of questions down there. I, hour and 40 minutes. Is there a specific message that y'all would like to put out to the people? And please, I implore that you give your contact information in your social media platforms so people can, come to y'all platforms. Okay.
Yes. Well, okay. So my conclusion, I want to share that it is important that we start addressing the immigration for situation for what it is. Okay, a broken immigration system that needs to be fixed immediately so that the process doesn't take like 10, 12 years for a person to actually come to the US legally, and also to really not utilize this topic for the election, but rather for what it is. And it's basically a situation that is created as far as the numbers based on what we have currently that needs to be addressed, where hey, it's going out of balance, and we need to have our representatives address it for what it is, for fixing it, for not destabilizing other countries to create immigration to the US, whether legally or illegally, but rather to have a win-win situation for every country. If a country is able to progress for itself, that is a benefit to the Americans as well, because that it creates win-win situation for all. And instead of our country just going and destabilizing other countries, and then just the profit for the 1% of our country, and including ourselves. So my final conclusion as far as this topic of immigration. And my contact information is latinaspirit.espiritu de latina@gmail.com, or on X at 3 Latina_spirit 3. And
You want to give them the contact information too in Espanol.
en español.
I think that was Spanish.
Oh, oh.
It's English and Spanish.
It
Español.
was both, yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you gave it the contact information in Espanol. I don't know.
Ok, lo puedo hacer en español. Bueno, para toda la gente que me quiera ver, mi show es Latina Spirit. Está en el canal 21 de Can TV en cable, y también en X. Me pueden encontrar en 3 Latina-espíritu 3, o en el correo electrónico latinaspirit.espiritu@gmail.com. Gracias y los espero que me sigan.
Wow. Go ahead, Prophet John.
Y para mí, puede visitar mi canal de YouTube. Se llama The Joyful Sound, Truth and Conversation. Es un canal en inglés, pero estoy empezando para cargar episodios en español también. Hay un cargo todos los domingos a las 10 de la mañana. Entonces, yo quiero visitarme en escucharme para enseñar el palabra de Dios. También yo tengo un canal en Twitch, twitch.com. Se llama Truth and Conversation. And estoy, a veces yo hago algo vez a vez. Pero yo no tengo un horario para cargar algo en este canal. Pero tune in.
You know, I want to.
That's good. Muy bien, muy bien.
Yeah, I want.
Gracias,
I want.
gracias.
You know, like I said, I want to thank both of you. And you know what? I encourage people to go to their social media platforms and to. I think they gave their telephone numbers and go to their email addresses. And you have been watching the Underground Railroad podcast. And we do a television show in Chicago that comes on every Saturday night at 10:30 on Comcast Television, CAN TV, channel 19 at 10:30 p.m. Central Time. But like Dahlia, we come on YouTube 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Okay. So I want to thank both of y'all, and I hope that we can do this again. And,
Yes.
and
Thank you for having me.
All right. You're more welcome, more than welcome. And assalamu alaikum to the brothers.
Salam. Salama.
Alhamdulillah.
It was a
All
pleasure.
right. Thank you.
Nice seeing you again, Dahlia.
Likewise, Prophet Johnson. Hopefully, we'll do another topic, okay, soon.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Watching Underground Railroad and talk about immigration and phenomenal guests, and I encourage you to go to their platforms to support what they're doing because speaking truth, the powers in other countries in the United States, and there's a possibility that the immigrants that are coming on to sanctuary cities that the Democrats could think that they identify with them and they're going to use those numbers to their advantage. Could be they're going to use them for war. It's a possibility because there's less people going into the military. And it's undeniable that CIA operatives have caused confusion in these countries in the other hemisphere, from Mexico, Central America, Cuba, to retain and to control. And the military industrial complex is making millions towards the demise of our people. But this is Clifton Raheem Bradley from Underground Railroad Podcast. And say is assalamu alaikum.